Welcome to That's What I Call Marketing, the podcast where you'll hear from the leading lights in the marketing world and listen to their unique insights. Well, we are back with another episode of The Singles. These are our shorter episodes where we dig into some of the hottest marketing topics out there. These episodes are in partnership with Tracksuit, and of course, at this point, you know Tracksuit is the always on, beautifully affordable brand tracking platform for brands and agencies. As you well know, brand tracking has been out of reach for so many brands for so long, or if you were able to do it, maybe it was a once or twice a year dip. Well, Tracksuit have come along and they've totally transformed the market, giving you always on brand tracking. Yes, that's right. You will get monthly brand tracking against your competitors, yourself, understanding where you are in terms of your awareness, consideration, preference. And through their dashboard, which is really, really simple to use, you're able to see where your biggest challenges lie. You get consumer statements and sentiment. Fantastic, fantastic dashboard. So if you'd like to find out more, you can go and take a look at gotracksuit.com, and the team at Tracksuit are ready and standing by to show you how the dashboard works for your brand. Well, on to today's episode, of course, powered by Tracksuit Data. We are going to look at two of the biggest marketing stories of the last week. First up, we're going to look at the Elf Beauty, Elf Cosmetics. I've talked about them a lot on this podcast. I'm a huge fan. Their acquisition of Rhode. That's a fascinating story. We're going to look at the Rhode growth from the Tracksuit Data. And we are going to talk about the departure from WPP of Mark Reed. Really interesting, big news story this week. As always, if you're enjoying episodes of That's What I Call Marketing and can rate or review an episode, it really does help. Oh, and stay tuned to the end. Actually, I discovered a really interesting offer that Tracksuit have for students and universities. So make sure you stay tuned to the end to hear all about that. It really is wonderful. So let's get into today's episode with Dan and Jasper from Tracksuit. Dan, Jasper, great to see you. Some really interesting things to get through today as we're all packing our bags. We'll get on to where we're packing our bags for in a minute. But the first story for us to talk about is, now I'm a huge fan of this brand, Elf Beauty. I'm kind of a little bit obsessed in a slightly scary way. I saw Corey speak at an event in London about a year and a half ago for Creator IQ. Okay. So Brit Starr there, CMO, that asked me to come over, and I was mesmerized, like absolutely. She was just forced to be reckoned with and so engaging. So since then I've just been elf obsessed. So much so last year in Cannes, Patrick O'Keefe was speaking, and I kind of stopped both of them, and I was like, I need to get you on the podcast, and they're like, we need to go. You weirdo. So anyway, we'll get them on eventually. But yeah, so there's my elf fandom. But I think they do wonderful stuff. But they've acquired Rhode, which is Hailey Bieber by Bieber's cosmetics brand, which, God love her, she needed the cash. It's such an interesting space, beauty, and it's, you know, there's so many big global brands, you know, legacy brands, but then there's these new brands that are showing up. Like her brand is it 5 years old, or like it's new enough? I think I could have that totally wrong, but I think it's reasonably 3 years. Is it only 3?
Yeah,
insane. Worse. But so you guys have seen some interesting growth in I guess the category, but also the Rhode brand as well.
Yeah, completely. I mean, to your point, the growth of Rhode over the last 3 years has just been absolutely incredible. From a commercial point of view, they've grown to, I think it's 212 million in net revenue, which is incredible. Obviously, having, you know, that celebrity backing, and we're seeing a lot of celebrities enter and build brands in beauty. But I think Rhode has been the fastest growing to $1 billion exit that there has been, at least in recent times. And we're seeing, I mean, from a tale of the tape around metrics from a commercial standpoint, but then also from a brand health perspective, it's incredible. They're predominantly D2C led without pushing into retail, and they've just announced a Sephora expansion at the end of the year. They've doubled their customer base. their last 12 months was hitting 212 million rev. But then from a brand health perspective, it's just been a wild journey as well. So in the last 12 months, we've been tracking them within premium beauty in the US, and their ability to outpace the category, which is a highly competitive
Yeah.
category, at the top of funnel from an awareness and consideration perspective has been phenomenal. So they've grown 6% awareness within their core demographic of 25 to 34-year-olds. So we could refer to that as the younger demographic, because we know that the older demographic's 35 plus. They've in the last 6 months, they've built, added an extra 10 million people from an awareness perspective. So they've grown 10% in that core demographic. And comparing that to the category average of 5%, it's just leap years ahead, and then added a 4% a consideration growth. And I think, one thing that we've talked about a lot is how brand health has driven commercial outcomes, and how I think every second episode we're covering a new acquisition. But it is really stemming from, how are these brands within largely commoditized categories building such strong brand health and showing such exceptional growth in early years, how that's delivering this buy strategy from these larger incumbents as opposed to trying to compete. And I feel like within consumer or any disruptor like category, the question is always, why can't a Unilever do that? Why can't a Pepsi do that? But what we're seeing is we're seeing these larger brands really start to buy brand and buy capability within really important segments. And one thing I wanted to call out was just to compare the acquisitions we've covered in the past. Pepsi acquiring Poppi, Unilever acquiring Wild, and now Elf acquiring Rhode. We're starting to see these similarities where each of these brands tend to be largely premium. So, Elf started off and has proven the playbook around being that high quality but super affordable brand in the US. And now Rhode is really filling that $20 plus premium skincare brand. And just what are those segments that each of these acquirers are looking to go after, and whether that is a core demographic around age, or core demographic around better for you positioning, or premiumization in this sense. But it's a huge moment for Elf in the sense of they've already done so well themselves, and now they've added a phenomenal acquisition to their ranks as well.
Yeah, and we've said it before as well. It's always interesting then to see how the two come together. Operate separately, I imagine, because they're very, very different. I think the playbooks are very different as well. Elf did, things like the Liquid Death collaboration, like this. I'm not sure Rhode is going to be doing that. So, but it's like where how you're going to get, any CEO is going to look for some sort of efficiencies as well. So what will they look for, but where are they going to just let them live and kind of be their own brands, because they're both hugely successful. So that'll be fascinating to watch.
Yeah, completely. I think that, with Rhode, it allows them to access more of a high income consumer, throw up that average bundle price given the price point perspective, but then also follow the same social strategy that's worked so well with Elf that Rhode has also been able to capitalize on, that Wild and Poppi were so good at as well, which is a TikTok first strategy.
Yeah, it's fascinating. And like even the brand associations that you guys have seen, I know like things like innovative, cool, obviously celebrity pops up there, but like innovative and cool on their own, like, are two incredible, brand associations to have, right?
Yeah, completely. And just to highlight on that point, I think it's having those distinctive brand associations that are ultimately helping to cement Rhode's differentiated market position. And I mean, to just touch on that core demographic that Dan highlighted of the 25 to 34 demographic, within the particular category that we're looking at, which is premium beauty, that future growth and that demographic are so aligned. And what our data in the US is showing is that of those who are aware of Rhode, you got 47% who agree that they are a premium brand, which places it as a leader in a relatively crowded category. But then we also can obtain that 30% agree that Rhode is for people like me, which ultimately presents an area of opportunity, as this perception is a proven driver of purchase intent and brand loyalty. And I just think what's important to remember here is that it's this kind of intangible brand equity that really inflates valuations beyond pure financials and commercials, as Dan mentioned.
Yeah.
And I don't think it needs to be celebrity led in the sense of, we do see celebrity led consumer brands like Selena Gomez, Kim Kardashian, but then to the previous examples of Wild and Poppi, they're absolutely founder led, but it's, obviously there's so much strength to Hailey Bieber being your chief creative officer, but it is showing that just strong brands that are disrupting in a category that fill a segment that is high growth and well sought after really presents itself to these large acquirers that really want to buy that capability as opposed to just trying to compete.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, I think I mentioned before, I certainly have in the podcast, there's an Irish beauty brand sculpted by Amy that's doing really, really well. And, it's not celebrity led, although the founder is now pretty well known in this part of the world, but it's, it's not a dissimilar type of playbook in kind of leveraging the channels where the audience is, right? And talking and having conversations with the community. And I know that sounds a bit trite and a bit, engage your community, but it actually is what is working. And this category as well, I think the ability to create like useful content, and helping people understand how to use the product and all that. So it's fascinating to watch, and it's great to see Elf just continue to get stronger and stronger. Again, fascinated, obsessed.
And Connor, with the obsession with Elf, what do you think that they do so noticeably differently that grabbed your attention?
So I think kind of everything. Like I think they get it all. Like they get brand building, they get great above the line creative, like they make really powerful TV ads, they get social, they totally understand their audience, they're in lockstep with their consumers as well, right? The CEO is often online doing one-on-ones, conversations on TikTok with influencers. They completely understand the influencer space. The other fascinating thing with Elf is I don't know how many employees they have now, but when I saw Corey speak, she was saying that at the time there was I think 400 employees in Elf, like total. Like some companies have marketing teams, right? They've 400 total. They're all shareholders.
Oh yeah, cool.
So that whole idea of like how to get stuff done and how to move at the pace that they move at is amazing. They also do that kind of, the Too Many Dicks campaign, which is about, getting more women on board. And you're just just everywhere you look, they seem to be getting it right. And
on the topic of efficiency, like somewhat related, the other thing that seems to spring to mind is just the focus on the product range across the board. Poppi, Wild, and then also for Rhode, it tends to be pretty light product ranges. Obviously, lots of variations of flavors or types, but the product range itself is quite lean. I don't know. Have you typically seen that as well from an acquisition point of view, that early like 0 to 1 brands just going incredibly focused on a tighter product range?
Do you know what it reminds? I don't know is the answer, but it just reminds me of In-N-Out Burger in the States.
Okay, right,
I was always fascinated by that because, the McDonald's and the Burger Kings and all the others were how many different things we can have on our menu, and they're like burgers, fries, milkshakes.
Yeah.
Like that's it. So I always when I see that, I'm like, it's the In-N-Out strategy.
Yeah. That's gold. And you're following a similar strategy, just going after water bottles here to begin with?
Just water bottles. Yeah. Water bottles for gas.
Lean product range.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Well, listen, we want to talk about probably the other really big news item in the last week has been Mark Reed announcing that he is stepping away from being CEO of WPP. Obviously, he's spent a career there, like 30 years in lots of obviously different roles, and took up the mantle, 7 years ago after Sir Martin kind of exited side left or stage left. And look, I think there's going to be I think maybe the natural inclination is for people to go, well, what went wrong? Right? Like what, why? But he's there till the end of the year while they find, a successor. He's had a long, illustrious career. And, maybe a different spin on it is there's lots of things he kind of got right in his tenure at WPP. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to your point, since the news broke, it has been, I think, on the minds and lips and fingertips of most of us within the marketing and advertising world. And, I've read a lot of different articles and perspectives and opinion pieces on this. And most seem to highlight that his tenure essentially marked a period of significant structural strategic change and
Yeah.
ultimately delivered stability for WPP since his appointment. And what that seemed to bucket sort of within was through his efforts to streamline the agency network and push for a more simplified operating model, but then also focus on digital transformation and AI.
Mm-hmm.
And I was reading a quote of his yesterday where he highlighted that his biggest focus of the past 2 years was preparing WPP to succeed in this AI age, which of course ties into the launch of WPP Open, which is their AI-driven operating system for marketing transformation. And, look, I mean, I think if you take a reflective point of the journey WPP have been on over the past 7 years since he stepped into position, last year, they're, of course, named Creative Company of the Year at Cannes for the first time. And I think it's just interesting to see what his departure may signal across the industry, particularly as holding companies do face increasing pressure to modernize and simplify their models and structures and offerings. And I think as well, if you look beyond WPP into the broader holding company landscape, you've still got the merger of Omnicom and IPG, which is edging forward. And I just think it'll be a fascinating time to see essentially how that holding company landscape evolves and ultimately, what next for WPP.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be already people trying to predict. I did see one industry journalist posting on LinkedIn looking for the inside track on who the next CEO was. I won't name well, it's on LinkedIn, but I thought, wow, okay. And it'll be dealt with in the strictures of confidence, but okay. But it's such a big story. I think probably, obviously unexpected for those in the industry. I'm sure he knew. A lot of people are kind of saying the new chair might have had some, role to play in kind of coming in, and, he's known for transformation mandate. So, maybe what do you transform? The CEO is a good place to start, but and look, there's no going away from, they have had some big accounts move, but that's also the nature of this business, right? That happens. And I think, the pressures, as you say, on the big holding companies, it's not getting easy for them, which means it's not getting easy for anybody, right? It's definitely a lot harder out there for all agencies.
Yeah, completely. And, I mean, to your point about the account moves, I mean, that's very much in the nature of the brand agency relationship. And I think it shouldn't be, I suppose, overlooked that it was also during his time that they did win a lot of these global integrated accounts. So there was, of course, the Coca-Cola account, which was, I remember at the time when the pitch was running and that they ended up going on to win it. It was a huge piece of coverage because it was one of the largest reviews, I think, certainly in sort of modern times, I suppose. And it obviously resulted in them creating OpenX, which was their dedicated team, essentially sewn together a bespoke structure from within the WPP network. But I think to your point about what it could mean, the ripples across the broader agency landscape, I think there's been a lot of talk about the rise of independence, and could we start to see perhaps a shift toward that independent segment of the landscape? I think it will ultimately always come down to what are the brand's needs and requirements. Naturally, holding companies have, proprietary internal structures that are suited to cater multi-market, multi-department business accounts, and that's naturally, I think, where you'll continue to see them go. But I also think it'd be interesting to see how independents will essentially respond to this, and particularly with there being, again, as we touched on, the Omnicom IPG merger, Mark Rees stepping down from WPP. There's a lot of instability going on across the holding company space. So I think it'll be fascinating to sort of just keep tabs on what next and how that evolves.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm sure it'll be all talk on the Quasette next week, which moving neatly onto. I know we mentioned before, but the Tracksuit are going to be at Cannes, and I know you're kind of across different areas at Cannes with different piece of content. So Monday, anyone who's in the Palais will get to see the wonderful James Herman in his Cannes linen, talking about Brand X Factor. Look, James is phenomenal. Like, he's an amazing speaker, presenter, but just thought leader. Like, you know, and I'm lucky enough that I got to interview him, and like, he's just phenomenal. So like, yeah, I think if people are around for that. Then Matt is going to be at Adweek House on Tuesday with Laurie Lamb from Elf Beauty. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Where's my front row seat? Elf Beauty, guys. And then my namesake Connor is going to be at the Palais on Tuesday as well, talking about Born This Brand Building Way. I don't know if you ever heard the episode I did with Connor. I introduced the segment, What Will the Connors Do? Where people could come to us with their problems, and we'd answer them as only Connors can, but it never really took off. I'm worried what happened there. And then the Adweek Creative 100 reception on Wednesday to honour the Masters of Creativity. That's going to be amazing in Adweek House. And then, as all good French cities have, there's an Irish pub in Cannes. So Friends of Tracksuit happy hour on Thursday at 5 p.m. So I'm sure that information is on. Actually, I might stick it in the show notes just so people can have it to hand. And if you're headed to Cannes, go find the guys in tracksuits. And like, we do need to confirm, I have asked before, like, you're not wearing full tracksuits there. Are they tracksuit shorts and t-shirts? What's the get up for Cannes?
There might be some tracksuit bucket hats.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense.
I like the idea of cut-off tracksuits, linen style. I'm not sure if we can turn it around.
I'm sure there's some supplier out there can make it happen. Brilliant. Well, listen, looking forward to that. And then obviously afterwards, like, you know, there's going to be all of that content will come together. I know we'll try catch up afterwards and have a bit of a recap on it, but I know that's going to be available, so people can go to gotracksuit.com and avail of all the wonderful insights that you guys share. And speaking of sharing, I was listening to the Sleeping Barber podcast, which is quite a good marketing podcast. Mark and V won't mind me saying that. But they mentioned, or I think Connor mentioned it, that you guys have previously helped with university lecturers. So the idea is you're a university lecturer, you're teaching students on kind of branding, advertising. You can give them some sort of access to Tracksuit as a way to kind of help teach students how to kind of use the platform like Tracksuit and get familiar with brand funnels. So was that just a lie that the founders told on a podcast, or is it a true thing?
Yeah. They've carried through with some truth on that podcast. So yes, absolutely. To be able to share, especially when it comes to how students think about brand, measuring brand, evaluating brand in the sense of how does it relate to business outcomes, and displaying that through Tracksuit and the brands that we track. So yes, whichever one of our founders was spinning that on a podcast, they were telling the truth.
Well, look, that's great. I mean, what a wonderful offer. So I guess with any students or university lecturers that are tuned in and want to get in touch with the guys, you can check Dan and Jasper out on LinkedIn, but also go tracksuit.com and drop the team a note there. So yeah, it's a great offer, because it's, you know, it takes it out of the books for a while as well. So that is all good.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Great. So, well, listen, guys, thanks a million. I really appreciate the time again, and great to get the insights. We'll definitely be following the WPP story, and yeah, I'll be catch someone from Elf Beauty next week and get on this podcast. Thanks a million.
Thanks
Connor.
Cheers, guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed that episode. And as you heard at the end there, if you are a lecturer in a university, Tracksuit will give you access to the dashboard so students can start getting familiar with how brand tracking works. What a phenomenal offer from Tracksuit. And so just go to gotracksuit.com and get in touch with the team there. And of course, if you are a brand or an agency, that's exactly where you need to go to find out how Tracksuit can help your business create shared language amongst you and the C-suite. It really is a powerful tool for creating that shared language about brand performance. As we know, it is what creates future demand. That is it for today's episode. Again, if you have enjoyed and you could rate or review or share with one other person, it would be really appreciated. As you know, next week we are going to be coming with the Cannes sessions. So going to have daily roundups keeping you informed of everything that is going on at Cannes. So stay tuned for those. Also over on social and Instagram and TikTok under That's What I Call Marketing or That's_marketing. I'll be sharing just snippets from the days and you can see what is going on over Cannes. If you are there, do get in touch. Let me know. I would love to catch up. As you know, lots goes on at Cannes, but I would love to meet with as many of you as possible. So again, thanks so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. From me, your host, Conor Byrne. Until the next time, take care.